Today we're going to look at how we are going to build ourselves a Primaris helmet. We're going to go with the design of a veteran sergeant for this one. So let's jump straight in. Now what you're going to need for this is some tape and some various super glues to get your 3D print together and to hold it in place. CA glue is your best bet for this. I'm going to be using the masking tape to hold the model together while we go through the gluing process. So you want to be grabbing your back pieces first. You can see there's a cross section at the back, so you want to be grabbing your little cross, make sure you've got the angle the correct way around. And then you're simply slotting that in place, and that will be holding together the base. So we're going to chuck some tape on that on both sides just to secure that in place before we put the back of the dome on. Once the dome's in place, you'll be putting again some more tape to hold it together on both of the sides here. And then you want the front. So simply repeating the same process, lining everything up and trying to make sure that you have the seams as flat as possible. This is more important when you're gluing, but if you get it right first off, that is a good start. Now we do have a little bit of a gap down here, we'll fix that with filler later. So continuing on with the tape, and we're just checking to make sure that we have a good fit. So we've got the top of the dome here, and what we're really looking for is to make sure that you don't have too much of a seam, because that is going to be a nightmare to sand and fill later. So the flatter you can make this now, the less work you have to do later. Now I'll grab the face guard, and this just simply slots into place here. Put a bit of tape on the back of that as well. On the other side too, and then once that is in place we can start off with the hose connectors. So these simply slot into the side. I say simply, they're a little bit fiddly. You just work them. You don't want to be gluing these until you've test fitted it, because otherwise the hoses aren't going to fit and you're going to have some huge gaps. So we're going to put these in with the tape first. And do both sides. A little bit fiddly, get that one on there, put the one at the top just to hold it in place. There's the hoses in place there. Next we're going to start gluing, so we have everything in place, so let's drop some glue in the back here. Start off with the cross, as I said, and once that's in place that builds your foundation. So really glue up these seams on the inside, don't worry about making a mess on the inside, because we'll probably be covering that with foam or something later anyway, and plus nobody will see it. So we have here the mask. Now there's a bit of a recording issue, we lost a little bit of footage, but I've got a lot of it back together here. You can see we've already started gluing bits in, so we've gone for the front face mask around here. We've made sure that the top is as smooth as it possibly can be, so we don't have any sort of lip. And then we've gone ahead and glued on the inside with a generous amount of glue. We started off with spot gluing it and then just went crazy with it. So that is as smooth as we can make it on the top. So I'm going to start off by gluing the top of these side hoses. Just going to chuck some more glue on there just to give it a really good seal and make sure that doesn't move. And then we want to be gluing the hose to the outside of it as well. A bit of CA glue on the side of there. Drop that in. Remove our tape because we don't need that now, because that glue sets within seconds. So we're going to go on the inside. We're going to add a little bit more glue to the back of this hose. Try and hold that in place. Some of this can seep through, but don't worry too much about that unless it goes really bad. A little bit more at the bottom just to hold that. And then we start on the other side, just repeating this process again, starting off with the tape to really hold this in place. And as we fit this hose, you can see there's quite a big gap there, so this is why we tape it first, and we're just really trying to push it, manipulate it to the point where the hose is the most important part. Then we just simply put spot glue in there, go back and double check, remove our tape badly, and then we simply glue this hose back in again. And this time it will fit with a much better fit and a lot less things that we need to fill. Bit more glue on the inside, remove the tape. So that is the helmet now built. Now you'll notice that we haven't put the side pieces on. That is because these that you see right here are going to be painted in a different colour. So we're not going to glue them on now, because all we'll have to do is mask them off and it's a pain. And then we have the back pieces which we're going to paint again in a different colour. So just leaving them off and we'll glue them up at the very end. Now that is our helmet done. We're just having a quick check to make sure there are no issue spots, no parts where anything's wobbling, and then we just remove the last of the tape. So here we see it in the paint booth, ready to be prepped. So we need to do the sanding. So you want to make sure you've got good PPE, so get your face mask on, so there's a lot of plastic. And then you want to be sanding this down. We're starting with 180 grit on the power sander, just going over and trying to really knock down those really high layer lines. Then we're moving on to the hand sanding, just with some sandpaper. Again, 180 grit, getting the file in there just to get out any other bits. And then we're moving on to the wood filler. So putting this on quite generously around the seams. You want to make sure that you're filling those in really well. And then we're moving in with a watered down filler for all of the rest. So this is for like your large open spaces where there's no seams, because you don't need it to be really deep there. The following day we're coming back in with some 400 grit sandpaper, and we are sanding off as much as we can on the high points with a power sander, really trying to get a lot of that wood filler back down again to a good decent level. So now the first round of sanding is done. We're on to filler primer, and we're just going to be putting this on generously all over, and then once that dries we're coming back in and we're going to just check to make sure there's no loose parts. If you look right here, we have a loose part just here, so we're going to add a little bit more glue, because the last thing you need is to paint this up and then that moves and ruins your paint job. So back in with the high grit sandpaper now, and we're just really going over this, wiping off all the excess, and then another round of filler primer. And then once again we are sanding that back down until we finally go on to the paint primer. So at this point we are now done with all of the sanding and we're moving on to the painting. We're just trying to get a good clean layer. So going initially with a black matte. Now my first thought was only to go around the base of this and not to do the main dome itself. However, my OCD kicked in and I ended up painting the entire thing. So this matte black is what you need. This is going to be the final coat on the bottom. This is also a coat we can use around the dome as well, just to give it a bit of a base. Now I did the masking off camera because it's just tape and it's depressing. And then we're going with a gloss red. Now the helmet won't be gloss at the end. We can finish that up with a varnish at the end, a nice matte varnish, but for now we're just going to go over it with red. We're going to get that nice base coat of a good solid red, leave that to dry, and then we're going to need to come back and mask it up. So we're now masking to get the stripe down the middle of the helmet to show that this is a veteran sergeant helmet, and this needs to be in white. But what I've done is gone for a slightly off-white. So you can see here this is heirloom white, and we're just going to go over it and put a nice thick layer of heirloom white on the top. So this is a helmet in its first state, and all we need to know is put the extras on. Now I did paint these off camera, so here's a quick look at what they look like. We've just gone with a nice chrome, which comes out quite a nice silver for the sides for these ones. This is for your earpieces. I went with red for the back. These technically should be black or silver, but they've gone with red. My helmet, my choice. And finally we've gone with a bright gold for the skull, which is going to go on the front of the helmet. Since this video isn't sponsored, I will be sponsoring myself. So my Etsy store is linked in the description if you want to buy one of these models and try this out for yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. Hit that like button and obviously subscribe as well.